This victory here is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
Bernie Sanders won the New Hampshire primary last night, beating out 9 other candidates. Here is the totals. So you have Bernie up top here with 25.84% of the vote. Pete Buttigieg in second place with 24.3% of the vote. Amy Klobuchar in third with 19.8%. Elizabeth Warren with 9.25%. And Joe Biden in fifth with 8.66%. Now, before I dig into Bernie's win, I want to take a look at the other candidates and what led to their support. So looking at exit polls here, you can see Pete Buttigieg won people with incomes that are $100,000 or higher, which makes sense. Buttigieg is able to reach wealthy white liberals. That is sort of his base. He also won people on the issue of climate change, which I just don't understand at all. He also won people who prefer a candidate who can beat Trump. Again, an absurd choice. Pete Buttigieg is an absurd choice in this case, as he is on foreign policy as well, which he also appeared to win. Amy Klobuchar, her support here makes a little more sense. She won people who attend religious services weekly and people 65 and older. So, looking at some of the data there, especially on Pete Buttigieg, I mean, just a mountain of misinformation. Now, that said, look, Buttigieg won on climate change by, a lower amount than I'm going to show you when it comes to how Bernie won people over. But still, I mean, the idea that people think Buttigieg is the one to go up against Trump, insanity. I mean, just completely insane. But also, look, past these early states, both Buttigieg and Klobuchar don't have much of a path to the nomination because their support is very white. So they may be able to get some support, here and there in some states. Who knows? I mean, we'll see what happens to this race after New Hampshire. But the way it looks right now, Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg being in third and second here is actually a really good scenario for Bernie Sanders because it shows you Warren, his main competitor when it comes to the progressive voters, she's out. I mean, she's still in the race, but she is out of the running essentially. I mean, I'm not sure how much longer she's going to last. She may not make it to Super Tuesday. So, I mean, when it comes to Warren here, third place in Iowa, fourth place in New Hampshire. If Bernie and Warren's roles were reversed, her supporters and the media would be telling Bernie to drop out and back Elizabeth Warren. So, are we going to hear those cries for Elizabeth Warren to drop out and back Bernie Sanders? I'm only hearing some of it, but the media definitely isn't paying too much attention to this because they don't want a unified progressive ticket, or I should say unified progressive candidate. And Joe Biden, fourth place in Iowa, fifth place in New Hampshire. Like, I expected him to collapse a lot earlier. So this result actually makes sense to me. But it doesn't make sense when you look at the polling going into these places. So Biden, for a while, looked fine in polls. I mean, he was still in first place nationally for a while. He was still doing well, if not first and second or third in many of these polls. He's just completely collapsed. So while I expected his collapse to be earlier, it's at least happening now. And we're going to see how it impacts South Carolina, which was supposed to be his firewall, but he's losing support in South Carolina as well as Bernie gains. So we'll see where all that goes. But let's get to the winner now. So Bernie Sanders, let me show you what the exit polls showed about his support. So he won people that are 18 to 29 by 31 points. So as CNN's Ryan Struck tweeted, Sanders won more voters under 30 years old in New Hampshire than all of the other candidates combined, according to CNN exit polls. That is incredible. And this goes to the exact thing I'm talking about when it comes to Bernie being able to reach voters and bring people out this year in 2020 that didn't come out for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So the Democratic voters that came out for Hillary in 2016 are going to come out in 2020 regardless of the Democratic nominee because they want to vote against Donald Trump. Maybe you'll lose a couple people here and there on the edges, maybe some millionaires on television prefer Trump over Sanders. But by and large, the Democratic voters that voted for Hillary in 2016 are going to vote against Trump, regardless of the candidate, in 2020. So because those are already mainstay, because you already know you're going to have those voters, you have to win over people that did not come out in 2020. Young people are a huge part of that. So Bernie being able to reach young people more than every other candidate combined shows you that he would be able to bring out a huge voter turnout that would defeat Trump in 2020. But let's get back to some of the other points here. So exit polls also show that Bernie won people that are very liberal by plus 29, income less than 50,000 by plus 21, preferred candidate who agrees with you on issues plus 18. So again, showing you Democratic voters by and large are with Sanders on the issues. Support changes to single government health care plan plus 17. Decided before the last few days plus 14, showing you again that people that are with Bernie have been with him. A lot of them have been with him for a while. Top issue, income inequality, plus 14. He also won ages 30 to 44, so plus 14. So not just, Gen Z or millennials, but also some older voters as well in that under 50. Never attend religious service. That's a funny exit poll, but he won them by plus 12. Top issue, healthcare, plus 9. Men, plus 9. Union household, plus 8. Income, 50,000 to 99,000, plus 7. Now, as I was saying, turnout is how you defeat Trump in 2020. And the turnout in New Hampshire is pretty big. So as ABC News reports, New Hampshire Democratic primary turnout near 2008 levels. So that is in large part due to the young people coming out and backing him. So because he's able to reach people that don't normally vote in a primary, he will get even more of those people in a general election because there is less barrier to voting in a general election than there is in a primary. In many primaries, you got to be registered early, you got to, all this stuff. But when it comes to a general election, because of all the media coverage surrounding it, because you can vote for, the Democrat as somebody who may be an independent, for example, then this is a huge thing, a huge point to Bernie's argument that he's able to be the most electable because he brings out voters that don't normally vote or haven't voted before. He also, as I was saying there, won people on the issues. So as Sahil Kapoor of NBC News tweets out, NBC News exit poll of New Hampshire Dems, 69% support free public college, 61% support single-payer health care. Bernie Sanders won these voters by big margins. So again, people do care about the issues. Again, not everybody cares about the issues, but a lot of voters do care about the issues, and especially the ones that are motivated, especially the new voters and young voters that are motivated to go out and vote, are motivated by those issues that Bernie has fought for 40 years. Now, another thing here that isn't detailed in those exit polls is that Bernie Sanders has the most diverse coalition by far. So looking at CNN's exit polls here, he won white voters with 26% to Buttigieg's 25%, but he also won non-white voters with 32% to Biden's 16% and Buttigieg at 15%. And getting more specific here, New Hampshire exit polls among Hispanics, Sanders won that huge with 42% and Klobuchar in second here with 14%. And guess what states are coming up on Super Tuesday? Ones that are younger, more diverse, exactly the Bernie Sanders base. So his support in 2020 in some ways has almost kind of reversed. Like, he hasn't lost white voters clearly, as he still won them here, but he is clearly the candidate that has the most diverse support. And that is what he was lacking in 2016. And when you go into Super Tuesday, it's going to be incredibly important to have that diverse support behind you. So we're going to see how he performs on Super Tuesday, but by all indications right now, it's looking pretty good. And just to back that up, as Newsweek reports here, Bernie Sanders leads all Democratic candidates in support from non-white voters, new polls show. The independent senator from Vermont is backed by 28% of Black, non-white Hispanic, and Asian voters, according to the latest polling data from Monmouth University. Biden came in second with support from 20%, or 8 points less than Sanders. A separate Morning Consult poll shows Sanders has gained 10 points in support among black voters, while 27% saying they now back the senator, as opposed to the 17% who were before the Iowa caucuses. Meanwhile, Biden's support from the vital demographic has dropped to just 35%, which still puts him ahead of Sanders by 8%. So Biden's support among non-white voters is dropping considerably while Sanders is gaining. And you have to imagine Biden being in 5th place in New Hampshire is only going to make that worse for Biden and better for Sanders. Now, one last point here, because as I was watching the coverage of New Hampshire on all different cable news as well as progressive media, I noticed MSNBC kept comparing Bernie's numbers to his numbers against Hillary Clinton in 2016, without pointing out that he was going against one person. It was a 1v1 in 2016, and in 2020, it's 1 versus 9. So anytime you see or hear anybody make this point about, Sanders beat Hillary by 20 points in New Hampshire in 2016, he lost so much support in 2020. Show them this hilarious but very accurate tweet. So this was tweeted out by Eyeball Slicer. Looking at the crosstabs, it looks like Bernie made huge gains from the 2016 New Hampshire primary. Amazing. As you see here, number of candidates defeated in New Hampshire primary. In 2016, it was 1. In 2020, it's 9. So that, this graph is hilarious, but in some ways, the media should be showing this. I mean, if they're going to be so ridiculous to compare Bernie's 2016 numbers when he had one opponent to his numbers now when he has 9, then you have to also show how many people he just defeated in the primary. So in some ways, this graph is actually, very accurate and not all that funny. But anytime somebody makes that point to you, show them that. Also, keep working. Volunteer, door knock, text, phone bank, donate, whatever the hell it is. Make sure you are involved and you keep pushing this forward, because it's not going to happen without the support on the ground. So, as you saw here, Bernie wins young people, but he can bring out even more young people. And older voters like your parents, or if you are an older voter, talk to your peers, talk to your parents, talk to your peers. Get people and engage them on their issue. Ask them what they care about. What are they worried about? Because if they're worried about, all they care about is defeating Trump, okay, well, which candidate brings out new voters the most? Which candidate appeals to independents, to young people, to working class voters? Bernie Sanders. And if they care about, whether it's healthcare or housing or whatever it is, wages, Bernie Sanders is the candidate. All you got to do is go to Google, search Bernie Sanders, and put that person's issue in, and you'll find a plan on it. So you have to engage with the people in your lives. And when it comes to voting, bring those people with you. Bring people with you that don't normally vote, people that aren't all that engaged in politics. Make sure they are registered and that they can come out and vote with you on primary day. Get them out voting. That is how we win.